Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are listening to this conversation live, and also all of you who are going to listen to it later on. I am so thrilled to be speaking today to Charmaine Reid. Charmaine is a senior leader who spent a lifetime in life sciences, as I like to say. And she has taken this amazing leap now to redefine herself and her career. And when I spoke to Charmin a few weeks back, I was like, wow, this is a story that really needs to be told. Charmin is now into the field in which I have been performing for a few years: leadership development and coaching, and helping people to find their purpose and helping people to reach their potential. A very warm welcome to you, Charmin. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really well, and I'm so excited about the opportunity to chat to you and to, learn from you. I've been following you and your journey for a while now as well. So it's been, it's really great to be here. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charmaine. You know, your journey is unique in so many ways, and still it is the sort of journey that I at least personally know 100 people would like to go on. And it is really taking this leap, especially as a senior leader, when you have spent a few decades inside corporate and then you want to do something else and you want to redefine yourself, it becomes super challenging, right? So I just want to find out from you, what were the triggers for you to take this leap? What were the challenges that you were facing? Because you clearly have had an illustrious career. So what was your thinking when you decided to do something else?
Yeah, thank you. So as you said, I worked in the life sciences industry for over 20 years, and 15 of those were in the same organization, although through integration, not quite the same organization, and lots of different roles, really amazing opportunities. But in 2019, through following a large integration, my role moved to the US. So I'm located in the UK, and my role moved to the US. And it was at that stage that I had to consider, what does the future look like? Was really fortunate. I was offered an opportunity to go to Switzerland to work to set up a regional center for R&D, and it was a 2-year assignment. So I always knew that I was going to go for 2 years, and it was a really amazing opportunity, wonderful people, and living in a different country. Although I'm South African, so I have been living in the UK for 21 years, so have that experience of moving and living in a different country. But this was quite different because we knew we were just going for 2 years. It did coincide with COVID, so that added an additional element to the opportunity out there. But I always knew that at the end of those 2 years, I needed to be thinking about what next. And during the time that I was in Switzerland, I, through a webinar, actually met with a coach and a leadership who's now in leadership development, and actually works for the company that I now work for. So it's a long story, and we'll get to it. It's all about using your network. But actually, through that webinar, I actually brought her into the company to run some of the workshops, and actually went through her coaching program. And for me, I would say that was sort of the moment of when I started to really understand the importance of knowing myself and learning more about myself. And so when it got to the stage where I needed to be thinking about what next, I was really able to delve back into that deep dive, learn that I had learned more through the coaching program about myself, and start to think about, what is my purpose? What is it that I want to be doing in the future? So actually through that, I really learned that my purpose is to help people to grow and develop. But I'd never thought about it intentionally. So through the program, I looked back at my career. So even before I got into a leadership role, there is a red thread, as we call it, through my journey. And it was all about how I, throughout my career, have helped people to grow and develop, be it either through my own team and leading and developing my own team, or mentoring, setting up mentoring programs, or being a mentor, or setting up resource groups. So I've done a lot of that through different resource groups. So there seemed to always be a thread, which I never really recognized until I actually went through the program. So it was that kind of started that thought process in taking the leap as well. What next? Where do I want to go next?
Because you had quite what I would consider a specialized job, right, in R&D and in life sciences. I mean, that's considered, and I think that is quite an interesting recognition that you had through this program, that though your functional technical skills were, quite in a different set, I would say, as compared to your leadership and people management skills, right? I think that whole dichotomy, how did you navigate through that, right? And how did you then decide, what do I want to do next? And what helped you to make this shift, which I would consider, if I were to purely look at it from a career point of view, from R&D to leadership development, is quite a leap. How did you do that?
Yeah, so you're right. In terms of this, the sort of the specialist role, when my role changed in 2019, I went more into a senior leader role that was very broad. So before, I was heading up the regulatory operations, elements of in regulatory operations. So I was doing technical, the technology, the information management, and I also set up a business operations group. So my background is more in leadership and management. It happens to be within the R&D space. But when I moved into the role in Switzerland, it was a broad leadership role. And so actually I had a lot more interaction with people than and a broader sense of the term as well, not just my own people, but people across Europe. So I was heading up the regional center for Europe. So I was then able, much more exposed to a wider group. And I think that is really where I started to get a sense of what is important to me. Where do I, where is my value? Where do I get excited? And it's really is the people element. So I did consider moving into a role that was much more people focused. So even, within HR. But again, through coaching and really through understanding what my purpose is, and that purpose is to help people to grow and develop, I was looking at, well, how do I do this in a wider sense and actually step a little bit outside of my comfort zone as well.
Yeah. A very, very challenging task. Charmaine, how did you manage the uncertainty, especially to mitigate the risk? Because in many ways, yes, you might have a purpose and we might, know what is it that we'd like to do, right? But we are venturing into the unknown, and that unknown always comes with some sort of a cost, right? How did you actually mitigate that risk?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, the unknown certainly comes at a cost. And for me, I think, the biggest challenge was in my confidence in myself. So I know people think, oh, you've got to the senior leader role, how can you not be confident? Every day I stood up and spoke to big groups of people, and I'm confident in that. Certainly if it's people that I know, and I love to love to interact with people. But I think for me it was that one, I don't have a fear of failure, but because I believe that we learn when we fail. But for me, it was the confidence that I had something to offer. And that I can make a valuable contribution in an intentional way. I felt that, taking that risk, through the coaching program, and I'll keep coming back to this, because for me, it was my biggest aha moment was going through this program and really starting to understand myself, understand my values, understand my beliefs, understand my limiting beliefs. What is holding me back? What is making me make these decisions that I'm making, and why haven't I made those decisions before?
Yeah.
So in terms of those, so that risk mitigation was around, for instance, understanding that security is a value to me. Okay, and security is important to me. And when we first look at our values, we think of them always, I suppose, in a positive, and that they serve us, but also they can serve us not necessarily in a positive way. So if you look at security, it was also not serving me, because I was making decisions to stay in a role where I think if I'd listened to my gut a few years ago, I should have been looking at, other opportunities, doing something a little bit more different that was maybe challenging me personally from a growth perspective. So I think, that sort of risk mitigation for me was more about that learning about myself. I think also another challenge that surprised me was that when you come out of the corporate environment, and I've been there for a long time, was the structure you're, especially if you work in R&D, you're quite, familiar with structure, and if structure is important to you, you realize that structure that was there isn't there anymore. And also that support network. So I was very fortunate to be exposed to senior leaders, and I had people I could bounce ideas off, and suddenly that wasn't there anymore. And although you do take some of your network with you, I was quite surprised and maybe disappointed as well that some of those people that I thought would remain in my sort of thought circle didn't. And now it's very much intentional. Now you've got to go out there and reach out to people and connect with them in a different way. You're not, it's transactional. It feels more transactional. So that was a bit of a surprise. And again, from a risk mitigation perspective, just finding other ways, growing my network in a different way. I actually started a coaching diploma after I left the role, and have exposed myself to new challenges, new people, new industries as well, which has been really exciting. So yeah, it's, I think in some ways just finding the new me, the new what's important to me. Yeah.
Confidence and competence. I mean, I always find confidence to be such a double-edged sword, right? I think we fall into this pitfall sometimes that we should first feel confident and then we take action. And I almost feel as if confidence is the result. So we have to first take action. It's not an ingredient. It's quite fascinating for me, the number of people who pull themselves back saying, when I will feel confident, I will do this.
Yeah.
You have to do this and then you will feel confident. Because of course, when you do it for the first time, and you mentioned a few of the disappointments and the challenges, it's almost like a part of the journey, right? And we can read this 25,000 times till we actually go through it ourselves. Nothing
Absolutely.
is going to change.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've heard the saying from Brene Brown, that courage comes before confidence.
Courage comes before confidence.
Honestly, when I first read this was like she was just speaking my language, because that's exactly what it was. It's really having to take the courage and to step outside your comfort zone. And for me, the learn was also when I realized that I need to work in my stretch zone, not my comfort zone. When I'm staying in my comfort zone, yes, of course, it's a place we all like to be. It's comfortable here. It's like, the nice comfy sofa and a nice book, but I'm not really learning, and I'm not really growing, and I'm not serving myself. And when I put myself in that stretch zone, which is uncomfortable, and I'm still there, I am absolutely still there, but that's when you really learn. That's when you really start to grow and to thrive.
Yeah. So tell me, Charmaine, of maybe a year back or whenever you made that decision versus now, right? You have many learnings along the way. What were sort of, your expectations around how this new version of you, this reimagined you would be, and how it is today? And I'm sure there are both pleasant surprises, but there are also other things that you didn't expect, right? So could you give a little bit of insight into those, if there are any discrepancies around what you imagine and what's happening today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, in my imagined world, it was, I was going to leave this corporate role, and I was going to become a coach, and I was going to have lots of clients, and actually, what I was not clear about was what kind of people I'd again come from a corporate environment. And so when I was doing my coaching diploma, and I'm still in the final stages of that, I had sort of opened myself up to coaching people from all backgrounds and all interest areas. And so it was, it's kind of life coaching rather than career coaching. And so that was kind of the idea, was I was going to help everyone. And very, very quickly, I learned that my area is career coaching and leadership development, because I was, having, I reached out to my network and said, I'm developing my coaching skills, and, do you have anyone you want to, who needs coaching? And I realized very quickly that my area of interest, my area of passion is much more around that career leadership development. And I think it just comes because one of the things I always say and teach people is that when you move into something different, you don't leave behind everything you've learned. So coming from me, I have a degree in leadership and management, and having all those years of leadership, it just made sense that is the area that I'm interested in. That's the area where I have so much to give. But at the time, when I left, that wasn't what I imagined. I imagined I was going to go and, coach people who might need fitness advice or health advice, or areas that I have no experience in apart from my own. So that, I think, was a big learn. It's take with you what you have already. All those years of experience come with you on your journey. You don't leave them behind, and they really are there to enhance. So it's building. You just build, it's on what you've done before.
Yeah. I am a real believer that whomever you are coaching, they really learn a lot from how you are being, rather than, in addition to what you're saying or the tools or the techniques that you offer them, right? Because there is so much of this, subconscious level messaging that goes. And especially if you try to coach in an area where you have little, or, you might have a lot of interest, but maybe not so much experience, and definitely not results, then that's like watching a video.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one last question for you, Charmaine. This has been really very insightful. I know a lot of people, as I said, who are hesitating to take the leap, right? Because of the fear, the fallacy of confidence, and whatever that might be, or the values around security, responsibility, all of those values, right? What is the advice you would give those people who are on the fence, who sort of know that they're not living, the best version of their lives, and whatever, sometimes it might be true that you need to pay the bills, but many times, I think, especially for senior leaders, they have many things sorted, right? But still there is a fear, and there is a lot of this uncertainty that holds people back, right? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. So for me, I'd say the most important advice is knowing yourself, the self-awareness. So we talk about the 4 core skills of emotional intelligence, and the first skill in that is self-awareness. And I just feel that the journey that I've been on the past few years, but definitely the last 9 months, is that deep dive understanding of myself. So I am now in a much better position to say what is important to me. I have a very clear idea of my purpose. I know what my values are. I know what my strengths are. And by really understanding yourself, firstly, you can't lead others when you don't understand yourself. But by really understanding yourself, you're then able to say, what is important. When something comes up, you can course correct it. So as an example, one of the things that I did, instead of sort of completely leaping into the going to be a coach full time, I was contacted by an ex-colleague back in the industry at the beginning of the year, and they had a project, and they had asked if I would come and lead the project. And I know my previous self would have been like, absolutely, 100%, I'll come and work full time. I'll do, and I really had to lean back on all my learnings and say, I'll come and support you, but I'm only going to do it 50% of the time because I've started to develop my coaching leadership development. And that's how I ended up actually working for Impel, where I work now, because the other 50% of the time I had Impel had reached out to me, and and we explored this leadership development opportunity that I'm in now. And so I ended up doing both 50 for the past 6 months. But for me, that was the learn again, was that I actually took the leap in small steps. And I go back again to my security value, and that was what was important to me. So by actually understanding that, I was able to have this conversation with myself. Yes, security is important to you. What does security look like to me now, and what does it look like in the future? And again, with my background, I kind of need data, I need figures, I need analytics, and I understand myself in that way. So now I gave myself what I need. So that conversation I'm having is around, this is the data, so this is the reality, this is what you really need, and this is what it means from a security perspective. So coming back to that, really understand yourself, because when you understand yourself, you can have those conversations. So when you are sitting on the fence thinking, should I, shan't I, understand why you're questioning that. What is holding you back? Is it a value that is holding you back, and then how can that value be used as well, in terms of being positive for you and, guiding you in a positive way. So to me, that, the biggest learn is really learn about yourself, really understand yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for those wise words, Charmaine. I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
You in this journey, and I'm sure the journey evolves as you evolve too. But thank you very much for your time, and all the very best for everything that is yet to come.
Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me today.